Their grocery carts crashed in the supermarket, sending cans flying everywhere. She yelled at the stranger for being careless, but what she didn't know was that he was her new millionaire CEO. A forbidden love story filled with betrayal, shocking twists, and a romance no one saw coming. Will she risk everything for love, or lose it all? Before we begin, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The automatic doors of Megamart whooshed open, releasing a blast of frigid air conditioning that made Sophia Dante shiver, despite the sweltering July heat. Saturday afternoon grocery runs were her least favorite chore, but with her younger brother arriving tomorrow for his college orientation week, she couldn't postpone it any longer. The supermarket buzzed with weekend chaos. Families with screaming toddlers navigated overcrowded aisles while elderly couples moved at glacial speeds, blocking entire sections. Sophia gripped her cart's handle tighter, her knuckles white with frustration. She had exactly 47 minutes before her next client call, a demanding tech startup CEO who wouldn't tolerate delays. Her emerald eyes scanned her meticulously organized shopping list, cross-referencing prices she'd researched online. Every penny mattered when you're supporting a pre-med student's education on a marketing coordinator's salary. Organic produce was a luxury she couldn't afford, but her brother needed proper nutrition during his grueling study sessions. Sophia rounded the corner into aisle 7, canned goods, at her usual brisk pace. Her mind raced through meal prep calculations. 3 dinners this week, lunches for 5 days, and enough snacks to keep Marcus's metabolism satisfied. She didn't notice the tower of discounted black bean cans stacked precariously high until it was too late. The collision happened in slow motion. Her cart struck something solid, another cart, with a metallic crash that echoed through the store. The impact sent vibrations up her arms as momentum carried her forward. The carefully constructed pyramid of cans wobbled, teetered, then collapsed in a spectacular avalanche of rolling metal. Dozens of cans scattered across the polished floor, their labels spinning in a kaleidoscope of colors. One particularly rebellious can rolled all the way to aisle 6, where it struck an elderly woman's ankle. The harsh, discordant mixture of noise was too much, a symphony of crashes, clatters, and surprised gasps from nearby shoppers. "Watch where you're going," Sophia snapped, her cheeks burning with embarrassment as curious onlookers gathered. Her carefully planned schedule was now completely derailed. She looked up at the culprit and her irritation intensified. He was tall, probably 6'2", with disheveled dark hair that looked like he'd just rolled out of bed. His casual Saturday attire of worn jeans and a faded concert t-shirt screamed, irresponsible bachelor. Worst of all, he was smiling. Actually smiling at this disaster. "I could say the same," he replied, his voice maddeningly calm. There was something about his tone, confident without being arrogant, amused but not mocking, that irritated her even more. Without waiting for her response, he crouched down and began collecting the scattered cans. His movements were surprisingly graceful for someone so tall. Sophia noticed his hands. Strong, capable, with a thin scar across his left knuckle that suggested an interesting story. "I'm perfectly capable of cleaning up my own mess," she said stiffly, kneeling to gather cans from the opposite side of the spill. "Our mess," he corrected gently, restacking cans into a neat pyramid. "Physics suggests we're equally responsible for this collision." Sophia paused mid-reach. Was he seriously giving her a physics lesson in the middle of Megamart? She glanced at his face, searching for condescension, but found only genuine helpfulness. It was almost more annoying than outright rudeness. "Look, I'm sorry about the crash," she said, softening slightly. "I'm just having one of those days where everything goes wrong." "I know the feeling." He stood, dusting off his hands. "But sometimes the worst days lead to the most interesting surprises." Their eyes met for a brief moment. His were a warm brown flecked with gold, before Sophia looked away. She didn't have time for philosophical grocery store encounters with strangers, no matter how intriguingly calm they remained under pressure. "Well, this surprise cost me minutes I didn't have," she muttered, checking her phone. 31 minutes until her call now. 20 minutes isn't the end of the world, he said, placing the last can on the reconstructed display. Sophia shook her head, muttered something under her breath about people who clearly didn't understand deadlines, and wheeled her cart away with renewed determination. She could feel his eyes following her as she disappeared around the corner, but she didn't look back. As she speed-walked through her remaining shopping list, grabbing cereal, milk, and her brother's favorite protein bars, she couldn't shake the memory of those amused brown. There had been something familiar about him, though she was certain they'd never met. She would have remembered someone who remained that composed during a public disaster. At checkout, the teenage cashier chatted endlessly about her upcoming prom while scanning items at a pace that would make sloths impatient. Sophia tapped her foot, checked her phone repeatedly, and wondered why she always chose the slowest line in the store. "That'll be $127. 83. The girl finally announced. Sophia handed over her credit card, mentally calculating how this would affect her weekly budget. She'd need to skip her usual Friday coffee with her best friend Elena, but her brother's needs came first. They always did. As she loaded bags into her Honda Civic, she caught a glimpse of the mysterious stranger loading groceries into a sleek black BMW parked 3 spaces away. He moved with the same unhurried confidence she'd noticed inside, as if he had all the time in the world. Must be nice, she thought, not to worry about client calls or tight budgets or younger brothers counting on you. She drove home certain she'd never see the careless stranger again. After all, San Francisco was a city of nearly 1 million people. What were the odds? Monday morning arrived with the subtle menace of storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Sophia's alarm had failed to go off. A dead phone battery she blamed on staying up too late helping her brother with his dorm room checklist, leaving her exactly 18 minutes to shower, dress professionally, and navigate San Francisco's rush hour traffic to reach Green Harvest Foods before the most important meeting of her career. The elevator to the 15th floor felt like it was moving through molasses as Sophia checked her reflection in the polished steel doors. Her blazer was pressed, her auburn hair pulled back in a professional bun that she'd mastered during countless early mornings. She'd chosen her favorite pearl earrings, a graduation gift from her parents before the accident, hoping they'd bring good luck. Today's meeting would determine whether she remained a mid-level marketing coordinator forever, or finally broke through to the senior management track she'd been pursuing for 3 years. The new CEO was reportedly reshuffling the entire executive structure, and rumor had it he valued fresh perspectives over seniority. Green Harvest Foods occupied 3 floors of the sleek downtown tower, their commitment to sustainable agriculture reflected in living walls of herbs and vegetables that lined the corridors. Sophia had always loved working here. The company's mission aligned with her values, and the work challenged her strategic thinking skills. But today, the familiar environment felt charged with nervous energy. "Sophia." Eleanor waved her over from the coffee station, her usually immaculate makeup slightly smudged with anxiety. As Green Harvest's head of HR, Eleanor knew all the office gossip before anyone else. "Thank God you're here. I was worried you'd be late." Phone died. "What's the mood like?" Sophia grabbed a cup of the company's signature organic blend, noting how hands were steadier than she felt. "Tense. Really tense." Elena lowered her voice. "Johnson from legal looks like he's going to throw up, and Peterson from sales has been chain-smoking on the roof since 7 a.m. Nobody knows what to expect from the new guy." "What do we know about him?" Sophia had done her research, of course, but inside information from HR was always more revealing than official press releases. Daniel Corbin. 34 years old, MBA from Wharton, previously turned around 3 failing companies in 5 years. His father's Richard Corbin. You know, Corbin Industries. Billions in tech and real estate. Elena paused, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. But here's the thing. Daniel reportedly had a falling out with Daddy Dearest 2 years ago. Nobody knows why he left the family empire to take over a mid-sized organic food company. That was interesting. Most corporate princes stayed safely within their family's kingdom. Why would a billionaire's son choose the challenging path of reviving struggling companies? What's he like personally? Sophia asked, though she wasn't sure why she cared. That's where it gets mysterious. The executive search firm was incredibly tight-lipped. No social media presence, rarely gives interviews. Supposedly brilliant but ruthless. One anonymous source called him dangerously charming. Eleanor checked her watch. We should head to the conference room. Margaret wants everyone seated before he arrives. The executive conference room on the 16th floor was already packed when they entered. Margaret Jericho, the outgoing interim CEO, sat at the head of the polished mahogany table looking relieved to be handing over responsibility. The entire senior staff was present, 12 department heads who would determine Green Harvest's future direction. Sophia took a seat in the second row, close enough to demonstrate engagement, but not so close as to appear presumptuous. She'd learned these corporate theater rules the hard way during her first year, when enthusiasm had been mistaken for overreach. The minutes ticked by with silence. Finally, at exactly 9 a.m., the conference room doors opened with quiet authority. Daniel Corbin strode in, and Sophia's heart nearly stopped. It was him, the supermarket stranger. He looked completely different in a tailored navy suit. His previously tousled hair was now perfectly styled, transforming him from casual weekend shopper to commanding corporate executive. But those eyes, those warm brown eyes flecked with gold, were unmistakable. Everyone, Margaret announced, standing to greet him, meet Daniel Corbin, our new CEO. Sophia's cheeks burned with mortification. She prayed he didn't recognize her, that Saturday's embarrassing encounter would remain anonymous. But when his gaze swept the room and paused on her face, the slight twinkle in his eyes confirmed her worst fears. He remembered everything. "Thank you, Margaret," Daniel said, his voice carrying the same calm confidence she remembered from aisle 7. "I know transitions can be unsettling, so I want to be direct about my expectations and vision for Green Harvest." He moved to the presentation screen with the fluid confidence of someone accustomed to commanding attention. Despite her embarrassment, Sophia found herself listening intently as he outlined his analysis of the company's strengths and challenges. "We're at a crossroads," he continued, clicking through slides that revealed impressive research into every aspect of their operations. "The organic food market is expanding rapidly, but we're losing market share to companies with more flexible distribution networks and stronger brand recognition. We have 60 days to demonstrate significant improvement, or our board will consider acquisition offers." A murmur of concern rippled through the room. Acquisition usually meant layoffs, restructuring, and the end of Green Harvest's independent mission. However, Daniel's tone shifted, becoming more optimistic. "I see tremendous untapped potential here. We have excellent products, passionate employees, and a brand that resonates with conscious consumers. What we need is strategic restructuring and bold decision-making." For the next 20 minutes, he presented a turnaround plan that was simultaneously ambitious and realistic. Sophia found herself impressed, despite her personal discomfort. This wasn't the laid-back grocery shopper she'd dismissed as irresponsible. This was a sharp strategic thinker who'd clearly done his homework. Then disaster struck. Just as Daniel finished his presentation, Margaret's phone buzzed with an urgent message. Her face paled as she read the screen. "We have a problem. The Henderson Foods contract, our biggest client. They're threatening to cancel. Their shipment was supposed to arrive this morning, but apparently, our entire West Coast distribution network is down." The room erupted in panic. Henderson Foods represented 30% of Green Harvest's revenue. Losing them would be catastrophic, especially with acquisition vultures already circling. "How is that possible?" demanded Peterson from sales, his earlier cigarette break clearly insufficient to calm his nerves. "We have contingency plans for distribution failures." "The contingency plans assume regional failures, not system-wide collapse," explained Langston from operations, frantically typing on his laptop. "Our main distribution hub in Sacramento had a computer system failure that cascaded through the network. Everything routes through that facility." Daniel listened quietly as department heads offered increasingly desperate solutions, none of which could resolve the immediate crisis. Henderson Foods needed their organic produce delivered by noon, or they'd source from a competitor, possibly permanently. Sophia watched the discussions spiral into unproductive panic. She'd been studying Green Harvest's operations for months, preparing for this exact moment when she might contribute strategic insights. An idea had been forming in her mind, but speaking up in a room full of senior executives felt presumptuous. But Henderson Foods was their lifeline. Without them, there might not be a Green Harvest to worry about. Taking a deep breath, Sophia raised her hand. "Excuse me." The room fell silent. Every head turned toward her, and she felt the weight of their collective scrutiny. Margaret looked surprised. Marketing coordinators typically didn't contribute to operational crises. "Why don't we reroute the distribution through regional suppliers instead of relying on one central hub?" Sophia's voice was steadier than she felt. "We have partnerships with organic farms throughout Northern California. If we coordinate directly with them and use local delivery services, we could get Henderson's order to them by noon." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Several department heads exchanged skeptical glances. Peterson actually scoffed. "That's not how supply chains work," he said dismissively. "We can't just improvise distribution networks during a crisis." "Actually," Sophia continued, her confidence growing, "we've been overly dependent on centralized distribution for months. I've been analyzing our logistics data, and decentralized regional sourcing could reduce costs by 15% while improving delivery times. This crisis is forcing us to test a model that should have been implemented already." More silence. Langston was pulling up data on his laptop, verifying her claims. Margaret looked intrigued but uncertain. Then Daniel leaned forward, his attention fully focused on Sophia. "That's bold," he said quietly. "Explain the implementation process." Sophia felt a flutter of excitement mixed with terror. The CEO, who remembered her grocery store humiliation, was actually listening to her idea. "We contact our top 5 regional partners directly," she began, her strategic training kicking in. "Bypass the Sacramento hub entirely. Each supplier handles their geographic region, coordinating with local delivery services that already know the routes. Henderson Foods gets their full order from multiple sources instead of one, which actually increases reliability." "Timeline?" Daniel asked. 2 hours to coordinate, 3 hours for pickup and delivery. They'd have their shipment by noon with time to spare. The room remained skeptical until Langston looked up from his laptop. "The numbers work," he announced, sounding surprised. "If we implement her regional partner strategy, we could fulfill the Henderson order and potentially save the contract." "And if it fails?" Peterson challenged. "If it fails, we're in the same position we're already in," Sophia replied. "But if it works, we've discovered a more efficient business model." Daniel stood, his decision made. "Let's test it." Langston, coordinate with regional partners. Peterson, contact Henderson and explain the situation. Frame it as an innovative reliability upgrade. Margaret, authorize whatever resources they need. The conference room transformed into chaos as department heads rushed to implement Sophia's emergency strategy. She found herself appointed as coordinator, suddenly thrust into the center of a company-saving operation. Over the next 3 hours, Sophia's phone rang constantly as she managed regional suppliers, delivery services, and quality control checkpoints. Daniel appeared periodically, checking progress and offering subtle guidance that demonstrated impressive operational knowledge. By 11:47 a.m., Henderson Foods had received their complete order, delivered by 5 different sources but perfectly coordinated to arrive simultaneously. The client was so impressed by the innovative approach that they requested it become the standard delivery method. The plan had worked flawlessly. As the crisis team celebrated in the conference room, Daniel approached Sophia's desk. "Impressive work today," he said quietly. "That was strategic thinking under pressure. Thank you." She felt oddly breathless, aware that her colleagues were watching their interaction with keen interest. "I just saw an opportunity to solve the problem differently. Most people see problems as obstacles. You see them as innovation opportunities." He paused, studying her face. "I'd like you to join my senior strategy team. We need people who think outside traditional frameworks." Sophia's heart skipped. The senior strategy team was exactly the career breakthrough she'd been working toward for 3 years. "I'd be honored," she managed. "Excellent. Plan to attend our daily leadership meeting starting tomorrow." He smiled, not the amused smile from the grocery store, but something warmer and more personal. "I look forward to seeing what other unconventional ideas you have." As he walked away, Sophia became aware of the sudden quiet around her. Her colleagues were staring, some with admiration, others with barely concealed envy. Eleanor appeared at her elbow, grinning widely. "Holy shit, Soph," she whispered. "The CEO just promoted you in your first meeting. People are going to talk." And they did talk. Within hours, rumors spread through Green Harvest. The new CEO seemed to favor the marketing coordinator who'd saved the Henderson contract. Some whispered about office romance, others about unfair advancement. Sophia denied everything, but deep down she couldn't deny the spark she felt when Daniel's attention focused on her. There was something about their interaction, a chemistry that went beyond professional respect. When their hands had briefly touched while reviewing distribution maps, she'd felt a jolt of awareness that had nothing to do with business strategy. But office romances were dangerous territory, especially with the CEO. Sophia had worked too hard building her reputation to risk it on attraction to her impossibly charming boss. Even if those warm brown eyes made her pulse race, in ways she hadn't felt in years. 3 weeks into her new role on Daniel's senior strategy team, Sophia found herself working longer hours than ever before. The team was implementing sweeping changes to Green Harvest's operations, regionalizing supply chains, expanding product lines, and developing innovative marketing campaigns that positioned them as the premium organic food brand. The work was exhilarating and exhausting in equal measure. It was nearly 10 p.m. on a Thursday when Sophia finally looked up from her computer screen, realizing she was one of only 3 people still in the office. Her eyes burned from staring at spreadsheets and her neck ached from hunching over quarterly projections. But the satisfaction of seeing their strategies work, sales were up 18% in just 3 weeks, made the long hours worthwhile. She was analyzing customer demographic data when the office lights suddenly went out. Complete darkness enveloped the 15th floor, broken only by the faint glow of computer screens and the distant lights of San Francisco beyond the windows. Emergency lighting kicked in after a few seconds, casting shadows across the empty cubicles. "Great," Sophia muttered, fumbling for her phone's flashlight feature. The beam revealed her immediate surroundings but made everything beyond feel more mysterious. "Power grid failure," a familiar voice said from somewhere in the darkness. "Probably affects the whole block." Daniel appeared in her peripheral vision, his phone's flashlight creating a small circle of visibility around his desk area. Even in emergency lighting, he looked perfectly composed, as if midnight power outages were just another minor inconvenience to manage. "How can you tell it's the whole block?" Sophia asked, grateful for the company despite her complicated feelings about her enigmatic boss. "Look outside." He gestured toward the windows. The entire financial district is dark except for buildings with backup generators. This is bigger than just our building. They stood together in the dim glow of their phone lights, waiting for power restoration. The silence felt different from their usual professional interactions, more personal somehow. Without the buzz of office activity and fluorescent lighting, the space felt intimate rather than corporate. "We should probably head home," Daniel said, but neither of them moved toward the elevators. "The elevators are probably not working," Sophia pointed out. 15 flights of stairs in heels doesn't sound appealing. "Good point. I guess we wait it out." They settled into chairs near the window, their phone lights creating visibility. The city spread below them looked magical, with random patches of darkness creating a patchwork of light and shadow. It was beautiful in an unexpectedly romantic way. For the first time since she'd joined his team, they weren't discussing business strategies or quarterly projections. The darkness seemed to invite more personal conversation. "Can I ask you something?" Sophia said, surprising herself with her boldness. "Sure. Why did you leave your father's company to come here? I mean, Corbin Industries is massive, established, successful. Green Harvest was struggling when you arrived. It seems like a strange career move for someone with your background." Daniel was quiet for so long that Sophia wondered if she'd overstepped professional boundaries. But then he began talking, his voice carrying a vulnerability she'd never heard before. "My father built an empire by prioritizing profits over everything else. Employees, communities, environmental impact. For 34 years, I thought that was just how business worked. Success meant maximizing shareholder value, regardless of the consequences." He paused, staring out at the darkened city. But watching him destroy a small town in Ohio to build a new manufacturing facility, displacing families, contaminating local water supplies, I realized I couldn't be part of that legacy. "So you left." He gave me an ultimatum: conform to his vision, or leave the family business entirely. I chose to leave. Daniel's laugh was bitter. He was furious. Said I was throwing away everything he'd built for me, choosing idealism over practical success. "And now you're proving him wrong." "Now I'm trying to prove that business can be profitable and principled simultaneously. Green Harvest represents everything his company isn't: environmental responsibility, employee welfare, community partnership. If we succeed, it validates a different approach to corporate leadership." Sophia felt a shift in her understanding of Daniel. The confident CEO she'd been working with carried the weight of family expectations and personal principles in constant conflict. His calmness wasn't arrogance, it was the composure of someone who'd made difficult choices and was determined to see them through. "That's incredibly brave," she said softly. "Walking away from guaranteed success to build something meaningful must have been terrifying." It was, still is some days. He turned to look at her, his face partially illuminated by the glow from her phone. "What about you? What drives Sophia Dante to work 15-hour days and develop brilliant strategies that save companies?" The personal question caught her off guard. They were venturing into territory that felt dangerously intimate, but the darkness made confession easier somehow. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 22, she found herself saying. "My younger brother was only 14, too young to live alone, too old for easy foster placement. I became his guardian, dropped out of graduate school, and took the first decent job I could find to support us both." That's a tremendous sacrifice. It didn't feel like sacrifice at the time. It felt like survival. Marcus needed stability, education, opportunities. "I figured my dreams could wait," she smiled, though he probably couldn't see it clearly. "But working here, being challenged strategically, seeing my ideas implemented, it's reminded me that I have ambitions beyond just taking care of everyone else. He's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him. Marcus kept me grounded when I could have spiraled into self-pity. Taking care of him taught me resilience, strategic thinking, resource management. In a weird way, Becoming a guardian at 22 prepared me for this job better than any MBA program could have. They sat in silence, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows like earthbound stars. Sophia became aware of Daniel's proximity, close enough that she could smell his cologne. A subtle scent that was entirely masculine and oddly comforting. "Can I tell you something else?" Daniel's voice was barely above a whisper. "Of course. I recognized you immediately that first day in the conference room. The woman who told me off in the grocery store, who handled that ridiculous can avalanche with more grace than I deserved." He paused. "I was hoping I'd get the chance to redeem myself for that terrible first impression." Sophia's pulse quickened. "You made quite the redemption with that job promotion." "That wasn't redemption. That was recognizing talent when I saw it. You earned that position the moment you solved our distribution crisis." There was an unspoken tension. In the darkness, surrounded by the intimate glow of their phone lights, the careful professional distance they'd maintained for weeks seemed to dissolve. "Sophia," Daniel said quietly, and something in his tone made her breath catch. She turned toward him, aware that they were sitting closer than any professional situation would warrant. His hand reached out, fingertips barely brushing against hers in a touch that sent electricity through her entire body. The moment stretched between them, full of possibility and dangerous temptation. His face was inches from hers, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes even in the dim light, close enough that she could feel his breath against her skin. Their lips were almost touching when the lights suddenly flickered back to life. The harsh fluorescent illumination broke the spell instantly. They pulled away from each other, blinking in the sudden brightness, the intimate moment shattered by reality. Daniel stood quickly, running a hand through his hair, a gesture that looked uncharacteristically flustered. "The elevator should be working now," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "Right, I should get home." Sophia gathered her things with hands that weren't quite steady, avoiding his gaze. They rode down the elevator in awkward silence, both acutely aware of what had almost happened, and what it could mean for their professional relationship. When the doors opened in the lobby, Daniel held them for her. "Sophia," he said as she stepped out. "Yes? What happened up there?" "Nothing happened," she interrupted, perhaps too quickly. "Just two colleagues waiting out a power outage." But as she walked to her car, her heart raced with the memory of his touch and the knowledge that everything between them had changed. The scandal broke on a Tuesday morning with all the subtlety of an earthquake. Sophia was reviewing quarterly projections when Elena burst into her office, tablet in hand, and panic written across her face. "You need to see this. Now." Elena placed the tablet on Sophia's desk, displaying the homepage of Corporate Insider, San Francisco's most notorious business gossip site. The headline made Sophia's blood run cold. "Green Harvest CEO caught in steamy office romance." Below it was a grainy photograph that made her stomach plummet. The image showed two figures in what appeared to be an intimate embrace, illuminated by phone flashlights against darkened office windows. The photo quality was poor, clearly taken from another building, but the subjects were identifiable enough. It was her and Daniel from the night of the power outage. "Oh God," Sophia whispered, scrolling down to read the article. The reporter had somehow obtained details about her rapid promotion, speculating about favoritism and inappropriate relationships between CEO and employee. Phrases like conflict of interest and corporate impropriety jumped out at her. "It gets worse," Elena said grimly. "Check social media." The story had exploded across every platform. #Green Harvest scandal was trending on Twitter, with thousands of comments ranging from salacious speculation to moral outrage. LinkedIn buzzed with professional discussions about workplace ethics. Even TikTok had videos analyzing the corporate romance controversy. Sophia's phone buzzed constantly with calls from reporters, personal friends, and unknown numbers. Her email inbox overflowed with interview requests and crude propositions. The notification count on her social media apps climbed into the hundreds. How did this happen? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Someone with access to the building across the street had photographed them during what they'd assumed was a private moment. Does it matter? Elena sat down heavily. The damage is done. The board is meeting in emergency session this afternoon. Margaret looks like she's going to have a stroke, and Daniel, a knock interrupted her. Daniel appeared in Sophia's doorway, looking haggard in a way she'd never seen before. His usually perfect appearance showed signs of strain: wrinkled shirt, day-old stubble, eyes that suggested he hadn't slept. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Both of you." They moved to his office, passing clusters of employees who stopped whispering when they approached, but whose stares felt like physical weight. The atmosphere in the building had shifted overnight from professional respect to salacious curiosity. Daniel closed his office door and activated the white noise generator, a device Sophia hadn't noticed before but which now seemed ominous in its implications for private conversations. First, Daniel began, "I'm sorry. This situation is my fault and I take full responsibility for the damage to your reputation, Sophia." "How is it your fault? We didn't actually do anything wrong." But even as she said it, Sophia knew perception mattered more than reality in situations like this. In the corporate world, appearance is everything. A CEO and his subordinate, alone together late at night, photographed in what appears to be an intimate moment. It doesn't matter what actually happened. The optics are devastating. Elena pulled up news coverage on her phone. It's not just local anymore. Forbes picked up the story. Wall Street Journal is running a piece about corporate governance failures. The stock price dropped 12% at opening. Sophia felt sick. "What do we do?" Daniel moved to the window, staring out at the city, where somewhere, a photographer had captured the moment that was now destroying both their reputations. "The board is demanding explanations. Our investors are panicking. Henderson Foods is reassessing their partnership." Meaning, we could lose our biggest client because of scandal, not performance. His jaw tightened with frustration. "Everything we've built here is at risk because of one photograph taken out of context." Elena leaned forward. "What's the board recommending?" "Damage control, distance, complete separation of our professional relationship." Daniel turned back to face them. "They want Sophia transferred to a different department, reporting to someone else, with no direct contact with executive leadership." The words shocked Sophia. Transfer meant demotion, reduced responsibility, career stagnation. Everything she'd worked toward would disappear because of a moment of attraction she hadn't even acted upon. "That's not fair," Elena protested. "Sophia saved this company. Her strategies are the reason we're profitable again." "Fairness isn't relevant," Daniel replied grimly. "Crisis management is about minimizing damage, not justice." Sophia stood abruptly, her decision crystallizing with sudden clarity. No, Daniel looked surprised. "I won't accept transfer or demotion based on manufactured scandal. I've worked too hard, contributed too much to let gossip destroy my career." Her voice grew stronger as conviction replaced panic. "If the board wants separation, they can have it." She pulled her resignation letter from her purse, hastily written during the elevator ride up, but carefully considered nonetheless. "Sophia, don't do this," Daniel said, recognizing what she held. "The situation will blow over. Public attention spans are short." "Will it? Or will I forever be that marketing coordinator who slept her way to the top?" She placed the letter on his desk. "My reputation is already damaged, but I can control the narrative by leaving on my own terms." "Where will you go?" Sophia had been asking herself the same question. "I have options. 3 companies have tried to recruit me in the past month. Apparently Saving Green Harvest's distribution network made quite an impression." Daniel picked up the resignation letter but didn't open it. "This is exactly what I was trying to prevent." You were trying to protect me by accepting my professional exile. Sophia's anger flared. That's not protection, that's sacrifice. And I'm done being sacrificed for other people's comfort. She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I don't regret that night. We connected as human beings, not just colleagues. The only thing I regret is living in a world where that connection became ammunition for destroying two people's careers. Sophia. But she was already gone, leaving Daniel holding her resignation letter and Elena staring after her with admiration and concern. The next few days passed in a blur of exit interviews, packing personal belongings, and fielding job offers. 3 companies extended formal proposals, each recognizing that Green Harvest's recent success had been largely due to her strategic innovations. She chose Meridian Marketing, a boutique consultancy that specialized in sustainable brands. The position offered more money and greater autonomy. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like exile. Meanwhile, Green Harvest began struggling immediately. Without Sophia's strategic oversight, the regional distribution network that had saved the Henderson contract started experiencing coordination failures. Marketing campaigns lost their innovative edge. Employee morale plummeted as rumors spread about Daniel's autocratic response to the scandal. Daniel threw himself into work desperately, with the aim of distracting himself, but everyone could see the heart had gone out of Green Harvest's transformation. The company was functioning, but barely, like a person going through the motions while missing something essential. 6 weeks after Sophia's resignation, Green Harvest faced its most critical challenge yet. The quarterly board meeting had been moved up due to investor concerns about leadership stability and declining performance metrics. If Daniel couldn't demonstrate significant improvement and a clear path forward, the board would seriously consider acquisition offers, effectively ending Green Harvest's independence. Daniel stood in the executive conference room at 8:55 a.m., reviewing his presentation one final time. The slides told a story of resilience and strategic planning, but he knew the numbers were barely adequate. Without Sophia's innovative strategies and operational insights, Green Harvest had lost its competitive edge. The board members filed in with expressions ranging from skeptical to openly hostile. Margaret Chen offered a sympathetic nod, but even she looked concerned about the company's future. The lead investor, Harrison Webb, barely acknowledged Daniel's presence. Never a good sign. "Gentlemen, ladies," Daniel began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Thank you for accommodating this emergency session. I want to address recent performance concerns directly and outline our path forward." For 30 minutes he presented data showing modest improvements in several key metrics. Sales were stable, costs were controlled, and customer satisfaction remained high. But everyone in the room knew these were marginal gains, not the breakthrough performance needed to justify independence. "The regional distribution model continues to show promise," Daniel explained, clicking through logistics charts. "We've maintained the Henderson Foods contract and added 3 new major clients using decentralized supply networks." "Barely maintained," Webb interrupted. "Henderson has been expressing concerns about coordination failures. 2 delayed shipments last month alone." Daniel acknowledged the setbacks while emphasizing systemic improvements, but he could feel the room's confidence eroding. These board members weren't convinced he could lead Green Harvest to sustainable growth. Then Webb delivered the crushing question. "Mr. Corbin, with respect, hasn't recent management instability compromised this company's strategic capabilities? We understand you lost your head of strategic development under controversial circumstances." The room fell silent. Everyone knew he was referring to Sophia's resignation and the scandal that had consumed headlines for weeks. "Personnel changes are part of any organizational evolution," Daniel replied carefully. "We've continued implementing strategic initiatives across all departments." "But have those initiatives maintained their effectiveness?" pressed another board member. "Our analysis suggests innovation declined significantly after Ms. Dante's departure." Daniel felt his composure beginning to crack. They were right, of course. Every metric that mattered — creative problem solving, strategic agility, employee engagement — had suffered since Sophia left. He'd been managing the company instead of transforming it. Just as he prepared to acknowledge their concerns, the conference room doors opened. Sophia walked in. But she wasn't alone, and she wasn't wearing a Green Harvest badge. The Meridian marketing logo on her blazer caused several board members to sit up straighter. Why was a consultant from a competing firm attending their emergency session? Daniel's heart sank even as it raced at seeing her again. Had she come to witness his professional downfall? Or worse, was Meridian making an acquisition play? "Excuse me," Webb said sharply, "but this is a closed session for board members and senior leadership only." "I invited her," Margaret announced, standing to address the room. "Miss Dante has a proposal that directly relates to Green Harvest's future strategic direction." Sophia moved to the presentation area with the same confident grace Daniel remembered, though she avoided his eyes. She looked professional, successful, clearly thriving at her new position. "Thank you for allowing me to speak," she began, her voice clear and strong. "I'm here representing Meridian Marketing, but I'm also here as someone who believes in Green Harvest's mission and potential." She activated the presentation screen, displaying slides that Daniel realized she must have prepared specifically for this meeting. "6 weeks ago, I left this company under difficult circumstances. Since then, I've had the opportunity to analyze Green Harvest's market position from an external perspective, and I've reached some important conclusions." Her first slide showed comparative performance data across the organic food industry. Green Harvest's numbers were solid but unspectacular compared to major competitors. However, Sophia continued, advancing to the next slide, "this analysis misses Green Harvest's most valuable asset, its reputation for authentic innovation and ethical leadership." Daniel watched in fascination as she systematically dismantled the board's pessimistic assessment. Her data showed that Green Harvest's brand recognition had actually increased during the scandal, with consumer surveys indicating higher trust levels than before. "Controversy, when handled with integrity, can strengthen brand identity," she explained. "Consumers respect companies that prioritize principles over profit maximization." Webb looked skeptical. "That's an interesting theory, Ms. Dante, but we need practical solutions to current performance challenges. Which brings me to Meridian's proposal." Sophia's next slide revealed her real purpose. "We're prepared to offer Green Harvest a comprehensive strategic partnership, marketing, distribution optimization, and operational consulting at significantly below market rates." "Why?" Daniel found himself asking, speaking for the first time since she'd entered. Sophia finally met his eyes across the conference room. "Because we believe in what you're building here. The regional distribution model you implemented, it's revolutionary. The sustainable packaging initiative, industry-leading. The employee wellness programs, they're being studied by Harvard Business School." She turned back to the board. "Green Harvest isn't failing. It's transforming an entire industry. But transformation requires sustained strategic focus, not constant crisis management." Her presentation continued for 20 more minutes, outlining specific initiatives that would address every concern the board had raised. More impressively, she'd clearly coordinated with other firms to create an integrated support network around Green Harvest. In essence, Sophia concluded, Meridian isn't just proposing a consulting contract. We're proposing to help Green Harvest become the model for sustainable business practices that other companies will spend decades trying to replicate. The room buzzed with interested murmurs. Board members who'd looked ready to vote for acquisition were now taking notes and asking detailed questions about implementation timelines. Daniel realized what she'd done. Instead of attacking Green Harvest as a competitor might, she'd positioned them as an industry leader worth investing in. Her presentation hadn't just been about marketing strategy, it had been about restoring confidence in the company's fundamental vision. After the board members filed out to deliberate, Daniel found himself alone with Sophia for the first time since her resignation. "Why?" he asked quietly. She gathered her presentation materials, still avoiding prolonged eye contact. Because walking away doesn't solve anything. I spent 6 weeks being angry about unfair treatment and damaged reputations, but you know what I realized? What? The work we were doing here mattered more than the gossip surrounding it. Green Harvest represents everything I believe about business, that success and ethics aren't mutually exclusive. She finally looked directly at him. I couldn't let that vision fail because of corporate politics. Even after everything that happened, the scandal, the resignation, the career damage. Sophia smiled. Not the professional smile she'd worn during the presentation, but something more personal and vulnerable. Especially after everything that happened. The controversy proved that what we built together was real enough to threaten people. That's worth fighting for. Before Daniel could respond, Margaret returned with the board's decision. Unanimous approval, she announced, grinning widely. Green Harvest will partner with Meridian Marketing, and we're authorizing additional strategic investments based on Ms. Dante's recommendations. The relief in the room was palpable. Green Harvest would remain independent, continue its transformation, and pursue the innovative direction that had been derailed by scandal. But as board members celebrated and Margaret coordinated implementation details, Daniel's attention remained fixed on Sophia. She'd saved his company and validated their shared vision, but she was still walking away at the end of the meeting. Sophia, he called as she headed for the door. She paused, turning back with professional politeness. Yes. Thank you, for everything. You don't need to thank me. This partnership will benefit both companies. That's not what I meant. And you know it. For a moment her professional mask slipped, and he saw the woman who'd shared her dreams and vulnerabilities during that night, when the power went out. The connection between them was still there, complicated by everything that had happened but undeniably real. Daniel, she said softly, what happened between us was the most honest conversation I'd had in years. He interrupted. And I've regretted every day since that we let other people's opinions destroy something that could have been extraordinary. Sophia's breath caught. It's not that simple. The professional complications, the power dynamics, the public scrutiny, none of that changes how I feel about you. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. I admired you from the moment you scolded me in that grocery store aisle. You saw me as a person, not a title or a bank account. You challenged me to be better, and when I failed to protect what we were building together, you found a way to save it anyway. Daniel, I know I have no right to ask this after everything that went wrong, but I need you to know, losing you wasn't just a professional setback. It was losing the person who made me remember why I chose this path in the first place. Tears gathered in Sophia's eyes, though whether from sadness or something else Daniel couldn't tell. I need to go, she whispered. Meridian has other clients expecting updates on our new partnership. But as she reached the door she paused again. This doesn't change anything between us professionally. The partnership is strictly business. Of course. Daniel agreed, though his heart was saying something entirely different. But, Sophia continued, so quietly he almost didn't hear, I never stopped believing in what we could accomplish together. Then she was gone, leaving Daniel with renewed hope for Green Harvest's future and tantalizing uncertainty about his own. Epilogue. A shadow on the horizon. 2 months later, Sophia sat in her new corner office at Meridian Marketing, reviewing quarterly results that exceeded all projections. The Green Harvest partnership had been a spectacular success, generating significant revenue for Meridian, while transforming their clients' market position. Green Harvest was now the fastest-growing organic food company in California, with expansion plans for national distribution. The regional supply network had become an industry standard that competitors were scrambling to replicate. Daniel had been featured on the cover of Sustainable Business magazine as CEO of the Year. More personally, their professional relationship had settled into a comfortable rhythm of mutual respect and strategic collaboration. They spoke frequently about business matters, attended the same industry conferences, and had successfully navigated the transition from romantic tension to productive partnership. It was exactly what she'd hoped for when she structured the Meridian deal. So why did she feel like something was missing? Sophia was analyzing demographic data for Green Harvest's newest product launch when her email chimed with a new message. She glanced at the sender line and froze. The email address was anonymous, just a string of random letters and numbers, but the subject line made her blood run cold. "You think you know Daniel Corbin? Think again." With trembling fingers, she opened the message. "Ms. Dante, congratulations on your successful partnership with Green Harvest. It must be gratifying to see your strategic insights validated so publicly. However, you may want to investigate your business partner more thoroughly before becoming too invested in his success. Daniel Corbin's departure from his father's company wasn't as noble as he's led you to believe. Ask him about the Riverside manufacturing incident. Ask him about the environmental cover-up that cost him his inheritance. Ask him about the families who lost their homes because of decisions he made and later tried to blame on his father. Some secrets are too dangerous to ignore." A concerned observer, Sophia stared at the screen, her heart pounding. The email felt like an assault on everything she'd come to believe about Daniel's character and motivations. The man she'd trusted, admired, and yes, fallen for, might be hiding a past that contradicted everything he'd told her. But who would send such accusations? And why now, when Green Harvest was finally thriving? She forwarded the email to her personal account and deleted it from her work computer, unsure why she felt the need for secrecy. Then she spent the rest of the afternoon trying to focus on client work while questions churned in her mind. That evening, alone in her apartment with a glass of wine and her laptop, Sophia found herself searching for information about Riverside Manufacturing and Corbin Industries' environmental scandal. What she discovered made her stomach turn. 3 years ago, Corbin Industries had built a manufacturing facility in Riverside, Ohio, a small town desperate for economic development. The project had been championed by Daniel Corbin, then heir apparent to the family empire. But within 18 months, groundwater contamination had been discovered, affecting hundreds of families. The news articles painted a picture of corporate negligence, environmental cover-ups, and legal battles that had dragged on for years. Families had been forced to relocate, property values had plummeted, and several children had developed health problems, potentially linked to chemical exposure. Daniel's name appeared in multiple articles as the project's original advocate and primary manager. His departure from Corbin Industries had coincided with the worst of the legal fallout. Sophia closed her laptop, feeling sick. Either Daniel had lied to her about his reasons for leaving his father's company, or someone was orchestrating an elaborate character assassination. But why target him now? And why involve her? Her phone buzzed with a text message from Daniel. "Great numbers on the quarterly report. Dinner tomorrow to celebrate." She stared at the message, unsure how to respond. The man asking her to dinner might be the ethical leader she'd fallen for. Or he might be someone capable of environmental destruction and corporate deception. The story she thought she knew was far from over. Outside her apartment window, San Francisco glittered in the darkness. Beautiful, mysterious, and full of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Somewhere in those lights, Daniel Corbin was probably reviewing the same quarterly reports, unaware that his past was catching up with him. Or perhaps he was very aware, and the anonymous email was just the beginning of a much larger reckoning. Sophia set her phone aside without responding to his text. Tomorrow would bring new questions, difficult conversations, and choices that would determine not just the future of their business partnership, but whether the connection between them could survive the truth, whatever that truth might be. The collision in the grocery store aisle had started everything. Now she wondered if another kind of crash was coming, one that might destroy everything they'd built together. But this time she'd be ready for it.